Okay, so here we are on January 10th, 2021, and we're working more on young Yaga's skills in an urban environment. And I love how she takes odor and immediately gets to work. Doesn't take too long for her to get on track. But probably one of my favorite parts of the video is coming up right here. As soon as she comes around the corner, she runs right into a civilian going through this gate, and she pays absolutely really no mind whatsoever. She checks the person quick, but there's absolutely no problem staying on track. It's so obvious the distraction is so minor. So this is a good example of a dog going from the track line or working the fringe to realizing that the odor is deficient and then picking it up on the other side, usually from windblown odor or just proximity. And you can see how she easily picks up the track over here from a distance and grabs it. This is specifically how a lot of trailing dogs will work, and it's what makes it so wonderful and how you can make time on subjects that are actually on the move. And in reality, you're going to have lots of times where you're going to have major gaps in odor because of lots of traffic, human and otherwise, or really poor weather conditions. The dog has to be able to detect odor from the other side of places and not necessarily be right on top of the track line. More importantly, they have to be able to anticipate, based on experience and training, where these odor spots might be. So now we have another big intersection, huge distraction with this other dog up here. And you can see Jaga gave a little sideways glance, but for the most part stays off of it. However, you can see how she picks up a little bit of that dog's odor right there. She can't help but be a little bit interested, and it's forcing her to discriminate right on top of the track of the person that we're looking for. Got a lot of passerbys, a lot of people walking, and this is where the discrimination really comes into play. Watching her behavior is going to help us determine how she discriminates.
Leave it.
So really good timing on your leave it here. The way this person was hidden around the corner is very much like somebody that we're looking for in training. It's one of the reasons why she really reacted to that person versus people that are just walking around like normal. And so when these situations occur, your correction is absolutely necessary. Now, this intersection is really amazing. I'm loving the detail work, and you can see the multitude of trails that she's picked up on already. There's at least 3, perhaps 4 different people that she's picked up in her attempt to isolate our trail lader's odor. Let's see if she can figure it out. So this is the track line she picked up on before. She can't help but take it a little bit because it's the only track that's here at this particular moment. She follows it for a little bit. I think she determines it's not what she's interested in following and then comes up and off of it. Now the key is we're going to have to get her back to the general vicinity of where that track was, where she lost it at the distraction, or she's going to have to pick this up on her own. So all this, what we have here is what we call hunting behavior. It's a dog looking for a particular odor but not finding it. A lot of times this can be construed as actually trailing and following the suspect because we got great pull. But great pull does not mean trailing altogether. Now what I do like is she gets outside the scent pool of all that distraction that we had out there, and I think that this is what allows her to pick up the track again. So this intersection is really a good example of what happens in intersections due to blowing wind, and you're going to get a confluence of wind in intersections like this, differentiating directions. Plus, it's going to be exacerbated by a lot of vehicular traffic in through that intersection. So our human odor from our subject is going to get scattered in a lot of directions. Mind you that the track line is going to be very weak anyway because it's on cement, and it's also contaminated. Got a lot of people walking around here, and I'd venture to say, since you've laid this track, you probably had a couple people right on some of the track line. So you're seeing a lot of combination here. You're seeing good blown odor, you're seeing a little bit of negative, and then you're seeing a dog that's going into hunting mode, right? And so this is a perfect example of what happens in intersections. And I love that you're allowing her to check all these different directions, which is important because if she doesn't have the odor, the last thing we want to do is force her to where we perceive the odor to be. We'd like her to figure this out in training on her own.
Leave it.
Do a really good job of correcting Jaga here for the distraction. We've got some sort of critter. Look how low that body's going and how furtive the movements are. This is completely different than when we're trailing our human, and you have to be able to correct it. But the question is why does this happen? Well, it's very simple. Your track value has diminished because she's been out of odor for so long or on the fringe of it. She hasn't had the track, and so because she's young, because she's immature, and because she has such high drive, when she gets into the middle of that critter odor, wham, she's going to take it. But she doesn't forget what she's looking for, and she's still hunting and showing you some great negatives right here as she comes back to the intersection this all started from. She starts to show some pretty great behavior that she's detecting the scent picture again from a distance and then hits it pretty hard right along this track line. Now, what's the difference in the behavior before? Before it was all scatterbrained, kind of non-directional with a lot of heads up. Now we're very traditional heads down, which is where she likes to be when she's in track odor. We have consistent direction of travel, consistent speed, consistent pull. It's consistency with all these body language behaviors in totality that tell us she's trailing, not just one thing in particular. We have this tendency to believe that when the dog is pulling, they're in odor. That's not necessarily true. We have to have other body language cues as well, which is head position, tail set, ear set, consistency, and direction of travel with pull. As we get closer to the suspect, we haven't had a lot of change in behavior. And I think it's because you're in a residential area with a lot of odor. So your proximity alert is really, really close to the subject, and it's pretty much right here.
Hey, good girlie.
Okay, so great work. Let's just kind of continue this method right here in these types of distances and these types of environments. She's going to have to get used to dealing with these big intersections and then also with the crowds of people from time to time. We just need to repeat this. Understand that she's a young dog. She's still a pup. She's got a lot to learn, and it's hard not to pay attention to some things when they're out there. It's going to be just repetition that gets her through it.